Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Welcome. It's August 27th, 2021. We're glad you're with us this morning. Our agenda today, we'll start out with success stories. I know of two different landings that we'll report this morning. After that, we'll go to our 30-second introductions. We'll have everybody put their information in the chat window. After that, we'll go to our committee reports, hear about workshops, job fairs, PIT crew, the interview success workshop, and hear from the about the career tip of the week. And then we'll have our main event, our speaker around 10 o'clock this morning. For those people on Zoom, we ask that if you don't have your full first and last name in there, that you please go in, hover over the little camera microphone button, and you should have an option to rename yourself. You can go enter whatever name you'd like, and then be sure to click that little blue box underneath it where it says remember my name for future meetings. That way, for all your meetings, your name will always be there, and it makes it easy for other people to try to connect and network with you. Please note, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please open the chat box. Just enter your questions there. As our speaker takes a break, we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. For those watching on Facebook right now, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Please just enter your questions into the comment field. I'm monitoring that feed, and we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments that we put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2007, 13 years ago, almost, well, no, it's been longer, well, whatever it's been, for a long time ago, I started facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. It's had several different leaders. In 2007, the gentleman who was leading the group got a job and said, who wanted to take over? I think I scratched my face. He said, okay, Jeff, you're it. So I've been doing this since 2007. In 2008, I found a need. I thought that there really wasn't an easy way for job seekers to find out everything they need to know about their job search. So I created a website called careerdfw.org to help those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search that you may not know. It is available on Amazon. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You'll hear more about that in just a couple of minutes. Well, we like to start the meeting off with success stories. I know of two people who've landed. The first person I know about is Allison Reeves. I don't think she's with us today. I don't see her on the call. She didn't give me a lot of details, but she said she landed at Hazen, H-A-Z-E-N. She's a civil engineer. So Allison makes number 80. So congratulations to her. Richard, please tell us your good news.
Well, I've been working with a headhunter, and I've had an interview. We initially set up as a Teams thing that didn't work. So I actually had a phone interview that ran for about an hour and 45 minutes. And then I didn't hear anything for about a week. And then they came back, I guess it was Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday, and said, okay, fill out the paperwork, do the background check. But then the start date is September 7th, I believe, which is the day after Labor Day. But yeah, it's been a ride.
So a recruiter reached out to you?
Beg pardon?
A recruiter reached out to you, or you saw the job posting and then a recruiter?
The recruiter ran into, I was looking for something else, and he submitted me to the Sedgwick crew, and they came back later, and then we set up the interview. So it was basically off to the side of what I was initially looking at, which was nice.
You think because you built a relationship with the recruiter that it helped you, it allowed him to know that here was something else that you could also do?
Yeah, it was interesting.
Interesting.
I tell you what, the hour and a half phone interview was, initially I was really concerned because I was trying to get the Teams meeting going, and I called the headhunter and talked to him, and he said, well, just call. And I said, well, I'm on the phone call with the guy. I'm sitting here typing to the headhunter while I'm talking to the guy on the phone. And I said, I'm already talking to him. So I just kept on talking to him. And that's one of those ones, whenever you have a really long interview, you have to, and it's, phone interviews are the worst. It's literally, you haven't got any feedback at all except what people are saying and the questions they're asking. So,
Right.
but
So
I had
just-
a pile of questions to ask them, and I think that probably was what helped.
So you only had one interview and then the job offer came?
One interview,
Wow.
and
very
they
good.
had a job offer. And considering the ones that I've had where I went through 2 and 3, you know, with a phone screen, this type of thing, and then a second phone call and nothing, it really stunned me that after one really long phone call, I had the offer.
Well, that's wonderful. That's very, very good news. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So you've
I'm
got
gonna-
2 weeks
I'm
of
gonna-
honeydews before you start your job, huh?
Yeah, I'm basically still having to float resumes until I get the job, because I'm always cautious when I get one of these things where the start date is 2 weeks out.
Right, right. So and that's good advice. You keep hunting until the day that, you know, you start that first job. So
Yeah.
you start that next job.
And I tell you
So,
what, I appreciate y'all in more than you can imagine, because these meetings help a lot. The
So what bit of
information,
advice, if you want to give a bit of advice to job seekers, what would you, what's the number one tip you'd want to tell
go to the career focus group, go to the job groups, go to the meetings when they start up again, because the networking, like the fact that I've been talking to that particular headhunter off and on since back in 2018, probably was one of the lead things. He already had the idea of what I could do, and when he saw something that fit, it was like, here, this guy would be a good
Yep.
fit.
So
And
build those relationships. Well, Richard, thank you very much. Congratulations.
yeah, I'm going to mute myself again.
All right. Do we have any other landings? Anybody else land? Please unmute your mic and tell us your good news. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? All right, we'll move on. Okay, so what we'd like everybody to do now is please open up your chat window, and in the chat box, please enter your 30-second introductions. We want a name, comma, phone number, comma, your email address, comma, position you're looking for, comma, 2 or 3 target companies, and then hit the return key. And what I will do is I will copy all this information. I will put it out to an email this afternoon to everybody who's on the call. Look it over this afternoon, look it over this weekend, and see, is there some company on there? Is there some way you can help somebody who's on this list? You know, I mean, you know, everybody is always looking for help. See who you can help. You know, it'll help, you know, help everybody if you can. Help one person every day. So we'll put 30 seconds on the clock. All righty. So, and for those people on Facebook, if you put your personal information on Facebook, I will be sure to delete it right after the meeting's over with. So I'll copy it and delete it. All right. Let's see what we have coming up. Coming up next, it's all about job, career fairs, training, and workshops. Good morning, Eldon.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. As Jeff said, I'm Eldon Zarinsky, and I'm here to bring you career and job fair information, as well as information on special workshops or events. The information I'm about to present comes from the calendar tab on the website careerdfw.org, which is on the screen in front of you. I do go through these things quite quickly, so if you hear something you're interested in, I urge you to go to the calendar, click on the appropriate tab, and find out more about it. There's usually a link on the announcement that allows you to register and or participate. All right, having said that, this week's career and job fairs. There'll be a hiring event for laborers, crew leaders, and equipment operators on Wednesday, August 25th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at 2721 Municipal Street in Dallas. And these are, again, laborers, equipment operators, and crew leaders. And there's a link for each one of those subspecialties to find out more about that on the
That was 2
calendar.
days ago.
August 20, you're right, Jeff. Thank you very much. Today's the 27th, so I guess the only event I have on here that's current is the United Electronic Recycling event, Saturday, September 4th from 9 a.m. to noon at Christ United Methodist Church at 3101 Coy Road in Plano. And if you have anything to recycle, I urge you to go visit that. This week's workshops, special workshops or events. Online, LinkedIn Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Join Locke Alderson, Terry Sullivan, Ruth Lipsky, or Kurt Vondemutter each week for an online session about LinkedIn. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link to participate in that that you can find on the calendar. And again, that's Tuesday, August 31st from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Again, online, the Who You Know Career Transition Summit will be held Wednesday, September 1st from 10 a.m. to noon. There is a link to register for that event. It's hosted usually by Foster Williams. As you may know, Foster is recovering from COVID. But if you don't know Foster, I urge you to get to know him when he's back on his feet and up and running again. And again, that's the Who You Know Career Transition Summit. Again, online, interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m. This workshop is hosted by Mark McDonald, who's the leader of our pit crew, and Walt Glass, who hosts our interview success workshop. On September 1st from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Please join them for session 5, analyzing the job description. And this is session 5 of a current 10-part session that they have going on interviewing and interview success. There'll be a workshop on networking, outside the box networking that yields results. Will be held Thursday, September 2nd from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. This is put on by Jason Hopper, who's a career coach who will help you start the year with more connections and greater knowledge and skills to attain your career and financial goals. There is a registration link for this, and registration is required. Again, that's Thursday, September 2nd from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. And finally, online, Effective Resume Seminar will be held Thursday, September 2nd from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Join us live each month on the first and third Thursdays of our Effective Resume Seminar. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link to participate, and you can find that again on the calendar, Thursday, September 2nd from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And that's it for this week.
Eldon, thank you very, very much. All right, if you happen to know somebody who just lost their job, please let them know about CareerDFW and CareerUSA.org, 2 websites that are there to help the unemployed. There's no registration. We don't collect any personal information. The websites are there just to help somebody. If you know somebody who just lost their job, they're not sure what to do, right there in the very front page, there's a little banner there where they can click for help. It'll take them to a great one-page article with a lot of great information. All right, it's time to hear from the practice interview team. Good morning, Mark.
Well, good morning, everybody. And golly gee, August is almost over, just in time because it's getting kind of hot. Hey, congratulations to Richard. He practiced with the pit crew, and I encourage you to practice as well. So let me just tell you a little bit about it. I'm going to try to be a little shorter than I usually am. So the pit crew offers as realistic practice interview as we can achieve. And how we do that is we start off with hiring managers. So the people who interview you are hiring managers, and all of them have been in job transition. Most of them are currently in job transition. Like myself, I was laid off 3 times towards the end of my career. So I've got a lot of experience with that. And so, yeah, we have experienced panelists and also empathetic and sympathetic to your situation. And then the third part is we have you send in a job description. So we use the information that you provide. It may be a job that you're pursuing. It may just be your dream job. But we take that information and personalize and customize the interview experience to your experience level, the job you're pursuing, and of course the information on your resume you also provide. The interviews are done on Zoom. They are recorded, so you can watch them afterwards and do your own assessment of what you might want to do better. They take about 45 minutes, and then there's about 15 minutes of discussion afterwards. So you get a recording of all of that. So when you're ready to practice, you just need to send that information, your job description, your resume, and your availability, and I'll talk about that in a second, to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. It's circled right there on the screen, and I'm going to post it up right now on the chat window. And we'll go to work setting up your practice interview, which we do any day of the week, business day of the week, from like 8 to 5. But most of the time we do them in the afternoon. And they take a couple of days, sometimes 3 days to set up. So when you send in your information, include your availability plus 2 days and plus 3 days, and we'll, meet your schedule. We'll try to meet your schedule needs if you have conflicts or, something you need to do. Some people are have part-time jobs, and so we can even do them on the weekend if that's something that's essential for you. So that's the pit crew. I wanted to mention a couple of other things. Please link in with me. There's my LinkedIn profile. That's what you'll see when you find me, and just send a brief note that says we met on North Dallas Career Focus Group. That'd be great for me. Let me know where we ran into each other. And you can search on Pit Crew, you can search on my name, or you can use the link that I posted in the chat window to go to my LinkedIn profile and make that request. The Pit Crew also offers one-way practice interviews. I'm a little, surprised that this isn't more popular. So I'm not going to say much more about it. If you'd like to practice a one-way interview, then just reach out to me at dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And we have a tool that Jeff has arranged for us to use that's a professional tool that companies pay big bucks for. And I'll get you hooked up with practicing a one-way video interview. And then a couple of more things. Interview Wednesday, Eldon just mentioned that coming up next is analyzing the job description, which is number 5. A very good session. And then after that we're going to start 5 sessions on effective interviewing. So the first 5 sessions, number 5 coming up next week, is all about preparing to interview. And then the second group of 5 is all about effective interviewing. So that starts in 2 weeks, and it's every Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And let me just mention session number 1, if you want to go to the Career USA YouTube channel, session number 1, we talk about recruiters and recruiting. And so Richard was lucky enough to find what I call a recruiter is more interested in quality than quantity. And so many recruiters that you engage are mainly interested in the fastest placement they can do, but there are a few around who get to know you and are interested in placing quality people in quality companies, and they may stick with you for years. So Richard mentioned that he'd been talking to this person since 2018, so that's 3 years. You find somebody like that, that's a gold mine. Make sure you nurture that relationship. And if you'd like to learn more about that, go and take a look at the recording for session number 1. And then let me mention just one more thing. Is I do a little coaching. I coach on how to answer the question, why did you leave your last position? So if that's going to cause you some angst, if it's something you can answer briefly and with confidence, and it may not be that, you had a job where you were laid off and you were the only one laid off. It may be a series of short-term engagements. That's pretty common, especially, the economic difficulties in 2008. Some people weren't able to find full-time work for quite a while, but we'll talk about how to answer that question and any follow-up questions that are generated because HR and interviewers in particular are going to be really curious about your previous roles and why you left them. And they'll certainly ask about that. And sometimes even the hiring managers are as well. So you want to be able to answer that question with brevity and confidence. And I can help you coach through that. So again, just reach out to the dallaspitcrew@gmail.com and request that we have a session. We'll do it on the phone. It'll be confidential. And then finally, everything the Pit Crew does is free. It's all done by volunteers, but we're also professionals. So you get a good quality product and the price is right. Reach out and take advantage of the opportunity to practice early and practice often. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. All right, it's time to hear from Walt Glass. Good morning, Walt.
Well, good morning. Sinuses and allergies have struck again.
Wow, what a new voice.
I can either talk to you like this or I can talk to you like this. So you have a couple of choices here, but I'm feeling okay. So it's just a voice thing. Well, good morning, everyone. Congratulations, Richard. Well done. I will send you my address if you like, Richard. Uber Eats will deliver some Krispy Kreme donuts, and I can send you my address. I am in withdrawal. Just a half a dozen be sufficient. I can have one a day for 6 days. be glad to send you my address. Just let me know.
Well, I'm going to find out when the meetings start again. I'm going to come by because I owe you all 2 boxes of donuts.
And I will let everybody know that if you're not aware, as of next Monday, if you have your vaccination card, Krispy Kreme will now give you 2 donuts, not just 1 donut for the next 2 weeks. So next week and the week of Labor Day, you can get 2 free donuts with your vaccination card at Krispy Kreme.
That's worth attending this group just in itself. That's fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to take advantage of that.
I'll be there.
All right. So what do I offer? Well, I like to help you with interviewing skills too, and I do it in a different way. You know, we talk about preparing a list of questions when you go into an interview. So I've prepared a list of questions for you today. So are you prepared for your job interview? I mean, do you feel confident? Are you excited about going in and having that conversation? How much time have you spent on your interview preparation compared to the amount of time you spent on your resume? I'll bet you it's a not very good ratio. Do you really know what you need to do to get prepared? What does selling ourselves really mean? Have you considered what you would do in your greeting, your opening, your closing? Do you have a statement of impact for your opening and closing? Or is it just basically, I'm going to review some of the things I've done over my resume as my opening statement? Have you considered the type of questions that may be asked and what kind of options we have in responding? Maybe there's some structures, there's ideas. We can't just answer a question and tell you how to answer every question because it depends on who's asking, what the question is, as well as where you are in the process. Do you know how really you can establish a connection with your interviewer and build that rapport? You know how to demonstrate your expertise and value. We do a lot of the I do, but we don't do a lot of the I help. So do you know how to really positively differentiate yourself from other candidates? Well, all that and more on the free interview success workshop. You have to be registered to attend. All you have to do is send me an email. I use the walt_glass@yahoo.com email address just for the workshop. It's held on Tuesdays, and I can schedule other ones if demand occurs. I only do 2 people at a time. You actually interview each other, and you cover the 11 basic categories of questions. How can we get prepared for those basic categories is going to be the key. So we'll do all of that all at one time. So we'll interview you. You get a video of your interview. You'll get a handout. And you get a video that goes over the handout that really talks and answers all these questions I just gave to you. It's free. All you have to do is send me that email and I'll give you some availability dates and we can get you scheduled. Now, learning does not have to be stressful. It does not have to have anxiety, fear, and all these kind of things that usually go with interviewing because we're simply here to improve our skills. So sign up for the workshop. And we can experience fun and learning without squirming. You finally found the opportunity they hid. And now for the job you must bid. Practicing removes the downward skid. After each, you'll be glad that you did.
Thank you very, very much, Walt. All right, it's time to hear the career tip of the week. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. The tip of the week is here's how to avoid sounding fake or corny in your next job interview, says career expert of 15 years. The author is J.T. O'Donnell, and I really like this one. It talks about intrinsic motivation. When preparing for a job interview, it's important to look for ways to stand out from your competition. Unfortunately, many candidates fall short because they end up saying cliches such as, "I'm so excited about your company's mission," or "I'm ready to take on more responsibilities," or "I'm extremely passionate about the work," without going any further. They wrongly think that these are all things hiring managers want to hear. But in reality, it often makes them sound corny, fake, boring, or even desperate to the interviewer. The key to impressing hiring managers and avoiding sounding inauthentic is to emphasize your intrinsic motivation. Know your intrinsic motivation before the interview. Intrinsic motivation takes over when we have a genuine interest in a task or topic and derive satisfaction from the work or learning itself without expecting any obvious external rewards, praise, money, prestige, recognition in return. The best way to highlight your intrinsic motivation is to talk about the meaning you derive from your career. What motivates you to get up each morning and go to work? I'm a career coach, for example, because I've seen so many people miserable in their jobs due to having little guidance or confidence. Helping someone realize that their dream job does exist and that is attainable for them is truly enjoyable and satisfying for me. So before your interview, think about what makes you want to take action. Perhaps it is because of a life-changing event. How is that experience connected to your love for your work? What do you hope to achieve as part of the process of working at that company? Example answer that incorporates intrinsic motivation. Andrew is applying for a teaching position at a charter school that focuses on low income and minority students. During the interview, he is asked why he thinks he's a good fit for the role. Here's what he said. My mother was a teacher for 30 years. By all accounts, she had an accomplished career and was well respected by her colleagues. But with so many students in each classroom, she constantly worried about the ones who were falling behind. She believed that if she had more time to work with them in smaller groups, she could have helped them excel in their studies. I used to think she was being too hard on herself, but 5 years ago into my training career, but 5 years into my training career, I'm starting to have the same concerns. I genuinely enjoy experimenting with different teaching styles that help personalize each student's learning experience, especially those who need additional support but can't afford it. That's why this position at your school is a perfect fit. The smaller classrooms allow me to do that. Not only does this ensure that every student receives the amount of attention they need to succeed, but that the right teachers I've found lead to stronger academic results, happier teachers and students, and ultimately a more educated society. What this answer tells the interviewer. In his response, Andrew connected the dots to what led him to apply for the position. He followed in his mother's footsteps as a teacher. He believes in the value of smaller classrooms. He is interested in experimenting with teaching styles that support each student's needs. He is motivated by the desire to reach underprivileged and underperforming students, something that his mother feels she didn't get to do. While Andrew compliments the employer for its educational values, he doesn't go overboard. Instead, he keeps the focus on how his professional passion would fit into the school's culture. His response paints a picture of what excites him about the work, why he cares about it, as well as how those things can make a positive impact on the school. There's no guarantee that Andrew will get the offer, but you can bet that the hiring manager won't be left with any doubts about his authenticity and motivation for wanting the job. That concludes the article. If you would like to revisit this article, you can find it on the careerdfw.org and the careerusa.org websites. And I hope you have a great day, everyone.
Kelly, thank you very much. You know, sometimes I sort of consider these articles as little V8 moments. You'll read it and go, wow, that's really a simple idea. Why didn't I do that in my job search? So please check them out every week. And it's one of the reasons we bring it up every week, because I know a lot of people don't go and visit the website, but at least you'll sort of get to hear it and go, okay, that's something I can apply next week in my job search. So Kelly, thank you for reading that. All right, coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll hear from PJ Dunn to talk about how to translate the art of transitioning. I just want to talk about our upcoming sessions. Next Friday, Labor Day weekend, we will meet next Friday. We will have open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. You've got questions about your job search, bring them on, and we'll just sort of answer whatever questions you've got. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about kingdomality. Where do you fit in the kingdom? There is a free test on the website. If you've taken it before, you can take it again. It's only 8 questions. It won't take you more than 10 minutes to do. It's called, go to kingdomality.com and look for test in the up in the banner at the very top, and it'll take you to a website. They do ask for your name and what position you're in, but they have never, ever contacted me. Please feel very safe about giving them the information. They just use it just to be able to keep track and for data purposes, but they have never, ever reached out to me in all the years we've been talking about that. So that'll be Kingdomality in 2 weeks. So if you haven't taken the test in the next 14 days, please reach out and do that, because we'll be talking about where you fit. And if you know where you fit, it'll make more sense as the presentation goes on. Okay, well, it's time for our main event. Many of you know PJ. He's talked about strength finders and where do you fit into the, how do you fit into groups and things. So PJ, thank you for being with us. This is a new title we haven't talked about, and I look forward to it. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get this set up and get this going so we can share and move right on. All right, we are getting there. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for showing up, being here today. I know that you could do a lot of things. You could watch a lot of different things on the internet today in terms of what you might spend your time looking at. But today, we're definitely going to talk about how we can transition, because this is one of the bigger things that I always hear. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So we know the deal. You've been out there, you've been looking, you've been sending your resume in, you've been talking to recruiters. Sometimes you get responses, sometimes you don't. Then at other times you think, do I really want to go back into that industry after I really just don't know that I really was my full, complete self? There are things that were still missing, even if I got promoted. But then you think, well, but I don't want to leave and start being an entrepreneur. What do I know about sales and all that stuff? Because that's what it's going to take. So today, what I hope we can do is just go ahead and demystify some of this. And then what I'd love to do from a behavioral science perspective is to show you how you make that transition, because this transition isn't just a technical thing, blocking and tackling. Actually, what this is an identity thing, and then how well you affirm or don't affirm the things that you have accomplished. And then, of course, avoiding that imposter syndrome that can show up for a prolonged period of time when you haven't been looking for, or when you haven't been able to find a job. So if you know me at all, you know I love quotes. So I'm going to start off with this one. I love this one from John Keynes, and he just says that the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas, it's more so about escaping old ones. And boy, is this true. When you're trying to transition, you're having to go from one position to another. And so I wanted to look this up in the dictionary just to see exactly how they are describing it. And I did find some things that were pretty interesting, at least one thing. And that is this: we understand that a transition is a change from one thing to the other, but it's either not just an action, but it's also in state of being. But see, if you don't know what your state of being is, or if you can't properly assess what your state of being is, this can leave you stuck. And then, of course, we could talk about the imposter syndrome, but the most dramatic example would be that caterpillar. And I'm going to bring this picture up again later to show some other great things about it. So when we talk about transition, here's the truth. The truth is we already know a ton about transition. We've been transitioning our whole lives. How you thought at 5 years old is different than the way you thought at 15 and the way you thought at 25, 35, and we can continue, but I don't want to call anyone out based off of age. But the truth is we already know something about transition. So if you're fearful, if this is turning into a moment where you have extreme dread and it's causing you to really palpitate or get your palms sweaty, I want to tell you that you actually can relax, because you do know something about transition because you've been doing it your whole life. So what we need here is an effective strategy and a few other things, and we'll talk about that. But for those of you who are really dreading this moment, please recall this. All right. So let's look at transitions and some of the numbers. Now, this is a poll that was taken by Gallup after 2020 to see what was going on with the individuals, a major theme that was popping up, and what's going on with some companies. So the individuals, let's start there first. 40% of the workers said they just want to change jobs. There is something that happened to people during 2020, by the way they process what happened in the pandemic, that some of them are saying, you know what, I've had a lot of time to think sitting at the house. And now I don't really know if this is the job I want to be in for the rest of my life, or I don't even know if I'm even going to get promoted or anything like that, because I just don't know. So there's a lot of people suggesting that. We also see that right now, there's a lot of people saying, I don't want to go into the office. I'd rather work for myself and work from home. There are a lot more entrepreneurs that kicked out and started bringing their expertise to the world, rather than saying, why am I letting my company pay for me to do this and do it that way? So the idea now is that there's a lot of, because of the transition and because of what's happened, a lot of stress, people are kind of looking at this with a different perspective. And it's interesting to kind of tap into it. Now, from the company perspective, what's interesting is because people aren't wanting to come in, because people aren't wanting to do certain things, we're finding that here lately, that if it's not something super specialized like a doctor or a lawyer, they're saying that they'll hire somebody with 29% of what's actually listed on the job requirement. Now that seems crazy to me, but this is what was coming up in the poll. And so we had to ask them, well, why is that? And of course they listed all the different things. Well, we might get sued if we make people come in, if we tell people they have to wear masks. There's all this stuff that's going on. And then they're saying people just don't want to work. They're having a hard time, for some folks, finding quality people, which I think is crazy to think of that. I know they're out there. They're out there. We just haven't linked up yet. But they're willing to drop it down to 29%, because here's what they were telling them. They were saying, well, what we're really looking for, even more so than just the skills, and again, we're not talking about super specific niche jobs, is they're looking at the personality of the person, they're looking at the aptitude of the person, meaning how fast or how well can they pick things up. And then finally, even if they look great on paper, have a great personality, and have great aptitude, am I gonna have to motivate this person, because this person's just not motivated because of the stress in the world and everything else going on. So when they do see someone who hits that trifecta of personality, somebody that they could work 50 hours with, someone who asks questions and wants to learn rather than waiting for the boss to come tell them what to do next. They want that, the aptitude people. And they certainly want the people with that internal motivation, the people who you don't have to stand over them and crack a whip to get things done. They're already ready to get things going, and they're not ready to step out because they found out some other news that has them now kind of bummed out. These people still stay motivated and keep coming. So these three things are what they're saying, is that, yeah, if we see this strong in a person, I guess is in Star Wars, that the force is strong with them, with this personality that's easy to get along with, a person who wants to learn, who wants to grow, they're using their aptitude to feel their way through it. And then of course, the person who's just motivated. Because again, we've had a bunch of them say, look, we've had some people great on paper, great schools, great education, great everything else. But once they got behind the desk, to keep them motivated was very, very interesting, because once they got the job or once they did certain things, they started to relax. And they weren't seeing that. They weren't even seeing that. So in the interview, this person was gung-ho, ready to go. They bought on that. And then when they got them there, they realized, I've been had. This person has no internal motivation. So if you're exhibiting those three things and your natural abilities, this bumps you up according to the recent data that's coming up that's post-pandemic. All right, so I'm a strategy guy, number one. So what's the strategy? How do we transition? How do we get into more of the practicals? Well, the first step is you need to inventory. You need to do a good inventory of your skills. So everybody, I've always contended with, is not a title. What everybody is an evolving skill set. So what you need to do is sit down and spend some reflective time thinking about, hey, what are the things that I have been doing? And how well was I doing them? And then if I got some attaboys or attagirls, what were they talking about? What was it about? But you need to know what that is, because as you're building the identity to transition from something to something else, we first need to define what are you? What are you transitioning from? So if you go back and look at an inventory of your skills, you really sit down and you really look at it, you'll get a sense of where you're dominating. So it could be project management. It could be selling or influencing. It could be budgeting. It could be any of these things, but look at what's that key thing that keeps popping up no matter which job you've been at. So you need to see that that's a skill and you've been perfecting it, and that's something that will also give you confidence. You also need to create a wish list of favorable companies. So when I say favorable companies, I'm talking about companies that are going to do well, whether there's a pandemic or not. So when you think about marketing and advertising, it will never go away. Healthcare is definitely not going to go away. Logistics is not going to go away. But even more so than that, you might even say, well, who are the top 100 companies here in Dallas? Small, medium, and large. And you can get that information from the Dallas Business Journal, their book of lists. They produce one every year. I think the Dallas Morning News also does one. So you'll want to look at these companies. You want to say, hey, am I somehow in alignment with this company? For example, if you're an organizational freak and the Container Store is looking to hire for some higher level, medium level, or whatever, you're in alignment with them, because if you're an organizational freak, then you probably inhibit stores like, the Container Store a lot. So think about the things that you are aligned with, and you're saying, hey, it actually would be kind of nice if I could work there, but create this list. The other one would be, and we've said it earlier today, and I think Russ said it earlier today, or Richard said it earlier today, and that was, you need to make new connections. You got to network, right? So 70 to 75% of all jobs are found through a network. And so you have to network, and networking will have a lot of benefits, and I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But the idea here is, when you're getting ready to transition, you need to be asking folks who are already doing the job how they do it, what's interesting. You need to turn into like a Barbara Walters in a way, and ask some good introductory questions to understand the mindset of these people if you're transitioning from one complete industry into another one, right? So that's a key important. You will learn so much more from the people who are already the Ben Kenobis out there. You just need to be ready to play Luke Skywalker, right? The next one would be that you need to update your resume to match. So if you're transitioning, if your resume reads like all you've done is project management, or you only worked in one industry, then the person reading the interview will get the sense or believe that, oh, well, this is a person who's a teacher that now wants to be a lawyer, right? And they'll maybe downplay it. But see, if your resume speaks to the transferable skills, which we're going to get into right now, in fact, and then further, is to say that, again, what's the universal skill that doesn't matter what industry that you're in, that is useful? And this would be things like sales. This would be things like budgeting. This would be things like project management, giving speeches, troubleshooting. Every company has some issue with something that's going on there. They need good troubleshooters. So instead of just saying, I've been at one company for 15 years doing this one thing, then they just look at the company, or maybe several companies doing a whole bunch of different things. You need to bring it back in and connect it for them so that they can see, well, what's the through line here? And the through line here is, it's not just the brands that I worked for. I was getting competent every stop I went to, and more so in troubleshooting, because that's my natural bent. See, people don't use language like natural bent. They do say cliches things. I love that article where they say things like, I'm a people person. Well, I'm just an accelerator. I'm a person who's a force multiplier. And they use all these cliches. But really, you've got to tell a really good, compelling story, which is that last bullet there. You got to be ready once you get your resume to match up with more of the universal things that can translate anywhere. You got to be ready to tell that story in a compelling manner. Here's the reason why. Number one, they're going to say, okay, this is great. I can see that you're a smart guy or gal, but you just not have worked in our industry at all. And I just don't think you'll be able to pick that up. But if you're able to show them that that's why you had the number of jobs that you had, is that one of the things that excited you about them, or that made you fascinated about doing the kind of work you were doing, was the fact that you were learning, you were growing. See, people love teachable people. Why they don't usually like to hire the person who comes in and says, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. That's old news. I've already been there. Don't try to teach me, pal. They don't like those people, because those people come in and push and make waves, right? So you need the person who's an incurable learner. People love to be around those people because they seem to be not just excited, but fascinated, or they're grateful that they're even there on the scene to get to learn new stuff. Every company is going to teach you their way of doing it anyway. You just got to help that interviewer understand that, no, my capacity to learn, that aptitude piece, or my personality is natural bent towards this, or my motivation is already internal because these are the kinds of things I do or look for in every job I've been in. When you can explain it that way, you're helping the person connect with what it is that is really you, because you're more than just what the resume says, and you're more than just what the cover letter might say, right? But they do need to be reflective. So let's jump a little bit here, and let's talk about these behaviors I'd love to see you exuberate or use or extend to folks when you're out there looking for jobs and you're trying to have these conversations. First, number one thing is, because you're going to be doing a lot of research on companies and trying to find things out, you need to have a good organizational system to keep your stuff. There's nothing worse than the guy doing a lot of homework on this stuff and learning about this job he wants to transfer into, and then he can't remember where he put all the notes. And now he doesn't know what to say, where to go. And now he's going back on trying to figure out which internet links did he use and all this stuff. So it helps to be extremely organized, because you're going to find out a lot of things in this transition about yourself and about other companies that you're trying to transition to. So that's a huge behavior to have. If you're not very organized, you want to look for a system that works easily for you. If you're very organized, this is a gold star for you already. The other thing is you have to be committed to the strategy. Once you get your strategy down, and that strategy could be, I'm going to network 3 times a week, and I'm going to go to lunch with these types of people, and I'm going to do, and whatever your strategy is, you got to commit to it. You don't quit because the first 2 or 3 weeks, it didn't garner you anything. No, this whole process is going to take time, which goes right into that third bullet. And that is, you got to be patient, because your energy is going to be in many different places. You're going to have a high energy, you're going to have a low energy, but just to have good tactics is one thing, but you have to have good energy with those tactics. Because if you don't, then when you hit a low, you'll stay low. And even though you know what to do, you won't do it for the fear of saying, well, I did this the last couple of weeks and it netted me nothing. How do I get motivated to get up and get on that computer and do this again, or go to a networking event? So you have to understand your energy levels. If they're low, even with great tactics, you won't be convincing, you won't be compelling. So don't let things rob you of good energy. And what robs you of good energy is negative self-talk. That's one of them. Or catastrophizing, just looking at things and going, see, that didn't work out. Oh, see, look, the coffee maker broke, that figures. Oh, look, my computer went out of date. Look, when you start going down that path, it's going to be easy for you to start then focusing on how long this job process is taking. And then once you go negative, once you get on an interview, they'll hear it. Right? They're trained to look for the problem people, because we don't want to hire liabilities. We want to hire assets. And by the way, when an asset cannot articulate the value that he or she brings to the table, that asset is now a liability. Because now I have to try to pull it out of you and try to figure out what makes you great, man. You haven't told me what makes you great. What makes you great, young lady? I don't know why. I just know that you showed up and that you need a job, but why? And what is it about this industry? When you've been in that industry, if you're going, and you look like a deer in headlights, they're going to go, see, you're not ready. And that's that last one. You got to be ready, because your story has to be compelling. When you tell them you're going from race car driving to now wanting to be a project manager at an energy company, yeah, of course they're going to look at you like, okay, this ought to be good. Let me find out. So being ready means you need to know your why. Like, why are you willing to transition? And then you need to know what was it about that experience that made you say, this is no longer going to happen anymore. I have to do something different. So you need to know that, because you need to connect the dots for the person sitting on the other side. The person on the other side is saying, okay, I hear you. And yeah, you have some references here, and you have a great resume. So you've gone to the pit crew, and you've gone to Watermark, and you've gone to all these different places. So you're coached well. I still don't know why you want to leave being a school teacher and now you want to be a fire person. I need to know why, because these are 2 completely different things. And they're going to say, well, you got to help me, because I need you to connect the dots for me. So have that story ready for what's compelling, for why you're ready to move to a different situation. And then what it is about that move that's going to be significant to you. You have to connect that. So we'll get to this now. I will just say additionally. So when you look at resumes, again, we talked about the resumes, they need to speak to transferable skills. The transferable skills are going to be things like project management. Have you led people before? Have you managed different systems and projects? Budgeting, are you really great at that? Did you put a budget together that helped the team, the marketing team come in on time with all their constraints and everything else they have? What about selling? Are you an influencer? Can you influence externally and internally? Right? So selling, to have that natural knack to be an influencer is what everybody talks about on social media today. They say, oh, I'm an influencer. Look, I have 80,000 followers, right? How would you influence internally and then externally? And being able to influence internally is leadership. Have you done this? I bet you have. If you look at your inventory, depending on how many people and how large the team was, were you asked mostly to lead? Were you asked to implement? Were you asked to get others on board because the project lead couldn't, because that's your influence? Or did someone come to you and say, give me the numbers on how this would work, because you're so sharp with figures? That aptitude, again, kicks in with budgeting. You see, so on that resume, and maybe I would even say on your cover letter, right? Because some folks are still doing that and some people aren't. That's fine. You have the different views on that. But on that cover letter, it doesn't rehash what's on the actual CD. What it does is it says, here's where we're in alignment. And you talk more about you and that company, but more so the company and why it's attractive to you, right? So if you're writing a cover letter that's mostly repeating back what's already in your resume, it's redundant. It will get dismissed in their heads in the first 3 seconds, right? Now, here's the other thing to translate here is you need to look at the ability to upskill where it's needed. So this is when you're able to go take classes. You can go get your PMP. You can go in and take courses. Maybe there's a webinar that you can sit on. I know a bunch of the guys on here offer these webinars, but in specifics to the thing that you're trying to translate into, I would want to know who's doing it well, and do they teach it, or do they have information or content out there? And if they do, I want to go and glean everything I possibly can. So it's the old adage of you fish where the fish are, right? And so if there's already people doing this industry that you're really excited about, I would want to be able to speak that language, even though I'm not there, so that when I do start talking to people who are in that sphere, they say, man, you sound like a natural. You sound like you'd fit right in. And when they say that, by the way, that's buying. That's a buying signal right off the bat. So then it's at that point that you just need to be able to tell that compelling story of why you're leaving school teaching and now you want to be an engineer, why you're leaving firefighting to become a lawyer. And by the way, this happens all the time. So if you ask, the question was asked to Gallup, how many times do people switch careers? Not jobs, careers. And they say in a lifetime, it'll be anywhere from 3 to 7 different careers, not jobs, that you'll have in a lifetime. So again, showing and illustrating transition, we do know a little something about it. We're kind of been doing it and are still doing it, whether it's explicitly or implicitly, every day. There's something that you're saying, that's how I used to think about that. But then I crossed the bridge and I got here, right? There's always a way to bridge. So here, by upskilling, learning the extra things. So if you know that this new job is going to be heavy PowerPoint and you don't use very much PowerPoint, you know exactly what to do. Go take those PowerPoint classes. Go learn everything you possibly can, right? That'll help make that conversation that you have when you're trying to be compelling, when you're trying to be persuasive, make more sense to where they'll at least say, well, maybe this is that person that has that natural talent to do this. They just haven't done it before. And that's what we want them to think about you when you're in the middle of the transition. We want to get the interviewer to think, yeah, I know I have all this data that says that this person is really a school teacher, but they're now trying to be an engineer. However, the transferable skills is, like a good teacher, an engineer needs to also be able to be good at, right? Specifics. And so there's things that you can pick up, or threads that you will see that show up. And then finally, to add to it as well, I like the idea of having advocates. You need to have a strong network, right? I don't buy things from people who just try to sell me stuff. I go look and see who of my friends have already bought it, and then I ask them if they like it. Or if it's one of my friends who actually does that service, I buy it from them, right? So network is powerful because these are people who can advocate for you. These are people who can vouch for you. These are people who can give you the advice that you need, that maybe you can ask, that you've asked for, or maybe you didn't ask for, but they are in tune enough to see that you're hungry. And when we see people who are hungry, not starving, big difference. We usually want to help the people that are hungry because we see that as energy. We see it as motivation, intrinsic motivation. And then the other great thing about this network too is if these people are already here in Dallas and they've grown up here and gone to school here, and if you look on their LinkedIn profile and they have over 1,200 connections, that person can introduce you to power players, the people who are movers and shakers who are doing things. How many times have we heard about different people who got into acting, who got into law, because there was one person that said, I can vouch for you. And what's more, not only that, I'm going to get in a meeting with you with this person that I want to introduce you to. When you're in a network, you've heard this saying before, your network is only, your net worth is only as good as your network. You've heard that before. If you look at Greenspan, if you look at any of these guys that have power, any kind of influence, they also know other influencers, right? So meet the influencers. And by the way, if you're an introvert, the biggest thing with introverts on networking is this is scary to you. you don't get your energy from meeting people. You actually get your energy away from people, doing books, reading books, doing other things. But see, here's the thing about this, to my introverted friends today, you guys ask great questions because you're usually deep thinkers and you want to ask a lot of times, the introverts. So you'd be great for a network because you'll ask questions to open up the extroverts. And the extroverts love to tell all anyway. And the extroverts know everybody. They know the key players. So even with your introversion, you can still ask questions. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to lead the conversation. You can ask great questions. So for the introvert, you might say, well, what are some of those great questions? Well, they're very simple ones. They're common denominator questions. So how long have you been here in Texas? Well, even if they've been born there, it's okay. Oh, we've lived here forever. What part? Oh, well, we're from South Texas. You know where McAllen is, and you know where, right? And they start telling you a story. When they start telling you stories, introverts, you're good at asking questions. You'll know where to ask the next question. Sometimes the best conversations that ever happened at a networking event is because a person asked 2 questions. And the other person said, man, we had a great conversation. They did all the talking. You just gave them a launch pad. Right. And so everybody's connected in terms of family. You know, is your family from here? You know, everybody's traveled somewhere or wants to go somewhere. So that's easy. Talk about locale. If you don't talk about that, you can talk about where they work or what kind of work excites them. If you could do any kind of work at all, what kind of work would you be doing every day? Right? So it's the art of just conversation, introverts. So because I want to demystify the idea that you have to be the super powerful extrovert to be a good networker. It's not true at all. You just have to ask just 2 or 3 good questions and then listen for the response, and then the follow-up will come. So a network, once again, 78% of the jobs are found through a network. If somebody can help me by telling me somebody who's great or somebody who's just as good as this person here that's in front of me, who's going to refer somebody, and I don't have to go online and do all this search and check all these resumes, I'm going to skip that person right to the front of the line every time because they're saving me time and trouble. Right? Now, the difference is you need to be ready, which we talked about in terms of one of the behaviors before. So with the certifications, real fast, with the upskill, lots of certs out there. Some of them are expensive, some of them are not. I think it's always good to learn more about project management, to learn more about how you speak, your communication style, because communication style and written style is also very important, especially the higher level the job is, the more writing that you're doing, they definitely want to see that. So don't assume you're great at communication because you can talk, right? So there's transferable skills like that, like budgeting, take a budgeting course. Definitely get influencing skills, right? Every CEO was a salesperson at one point before he moved all the way up. And he got to CEO because he sold himself. He sold his value to get there to that CEO level. So don't ever underestimate the things that you think, oh, that's simple. Everybody does that. No, but how do you do it? And can you tell the story? How do you do it? And what's more, can you make the bridge from, yeah, I was a school teacher, but this is why I think this is super important, right? So here's the thought I want to leave you with as well. And I'll give you a quick story and then I want to take some questions. I wanted to leave time to get definitely all the questions in I could. But here's the quote for you. If you leave with anything from today, just know you're not new to the workplace. You're just new to their workspace. That's what it is. And when you understand that, that helps make your story compelling because you're letting them know in a sense, it's not that you're new to this, you're just new to them. And what's going to make them appreciate you the most? What's going to make them really lean into you? The way that you tell your story about how you can bridge going from X to Y or Z. I also have another quote, but before I get there, let me give you just this quick one. This is my own story and testimony on this. I'll say it real fast. So in college, I was a musician. As a musician, I played in a lot of different little hole in the walls down there in Denton, in North Texas. Right, a musician. The job I took after that, after playing in the band, pay for my books, was working for IBM. Now, how does a musician go to a techie? Well, here's how. Well, when you're doing music, you understand how to basically express yourself. You understand people because the audience is there and they're either liking or not liking what you're doing. So you start to become intuitive about what you need to play, what you need to do. As a techie sitting there dealing with customer service, I already had an inkling of understanding of people calling in. And most people, when they call in, are pretty angry when their technology is not working well. But because I was used to winning over crowds, I used that to help win over the people who were already angry when they were calling in. The tech stuff I learned because I had the aptitude. What made me move up further in IBM was the fact that I could get people because I had to perform in front of them, right? So now switch again. The next switch was to go from being a tech person to being in sales and marketing for the Dallas business room, right? Well, what was the skill there? Again, people. If I'm in sales and marketing, I read them, I understand them, and then I try to ask or set the things up to where they can ask the question they want to ask, so that I can get them where they need to be so that we can then have a conclusion or a completion on the sale. Musician, going to techie, going to advertising, and then let's finish the close and close the loop. Professional speaker and coach, does it surprise you that a musician did that? Who then became a techie because the aptitude is there. I love to learn, right? Who then became a sales and advertising person, which is completely different than being a techie, who now speaks, right? So what's the trend? What do you see there? You see that there's a comfortableness with people, right? And when you make people relax, they listen better. And even if you have to go against or maybe contradict something that they're saying, you find a way to say it where it doesn't turn into World War III. And it turns into a situation where you're able to communicate better. And communication is always gonna, as my grandmother would say, communication rules the nation. You know how to communicate, you win, right? So that's full circle. Being a musician back in college, I had no idea that I'd be a professional speaker and coach. Definitely didn't think I'd be a techie, definitely didn't think I'd be in advertising, but I actually went at full circle. I see the thread. So what am I doing? Why am I telling you this? I want you to see the full thread and where you've been since college to now. What's the thread? Was it that you were good at solving problems? Were you a troubleshooter? And then was it that people looked to you to solve problems? Were you a command and executive presence person? Someone who can walk into a room and bring chaos to order? Or were you that budget person who says, I don't want to be in the front. Let's put me in the back with the numbers and the spreadsheets. I'm happy with that. Is that the thread that's running through your jobs? Again, self-inflect, you have to do this self-reflective thought process to really understand identity. Because when you don't know your identity very well, you're not going to be compelling when you try to tell them you want to transition. So think about it. When you're doing the research, where you're going, do they use the one thing that you were using a lot at the last position, or 2 positions ago, or 3 positions ago, right? As you look at it, you'll see the connection. You should see a through line that says, okay, this is what I do without thinking about. So if I can do this without thinking about it, why can't I do that over there with this company? Especially if they're going to train me, their jargon, how they set things up, right? So a project manager is a project manager. He may be doing different things, but some of the same skills are going to be there. A salesperson, if you got certain sales skills, you'll know how to adapt it when you're selling insurance versus selling cars. Still in 2 different styles of selling there, but if you get the idea of how to influence people, you can be successful. Doesn't mean you will, but if you get into that frame of mind of how they're using that particular talent, connect it. I'm here to tell you, you're more brilliant than you think you are. You really are. You're just taking a beating right now because you're not getting the response that you need, right? You need a response right now to help you feel and see that you're okay, that you can make that transition. And by the way, your network will help you. The other reason why I was able to get into IBM after being a musician, I had a friend who worked there. And I said, John, just get me the interview. If you can get me the interview, I'll do the rest. And he said, okay. Now, at IBM, I didn't have a home computer at that time. So what did I do? I went over to my friend John's house every day and worked on his computer until I bought my own computer. And then when I bought my own computer, then I was able to figure out some of the movements and how you use, back then mouses weren't that big and people were still using storage drives for stuff, right? Floppy disks were a thing back then. But I just needed to understand the architecture of how Windows was built. And then I looked to see, do banks or does IBM use that background, or do they use a different background like Unix? And then I studied that one. So the interesting thing is, if you have to drive with that research, again, keeping that energy up, then you'll create good tactics. And the good tactics should have a sound strategy. Again, how many people do I need to meet a week? And how do I need to connect with them, right? So how many emails do I need to send out a week or post? How many face-to-faces do I need to have? And how many events do I need to travel to? And then I might think, who will I take with me as a wingman? So if you're an introvert, they're going, oh, that still sounds scary, PJ. Bring an extrovert with you. They're perfect wing people to help you navigate that room. So now let me give you this, and then I want to hear some questions. So Trina Paulus said this: how does one become a butterfly? You want to fly so bad that you're willing to give up being a caterpillar. Let that sit for just a moment. None of us were supposed to stay a caterpillar. We're destined to take those talents, those gifts, and those abilities, as in Psalm 139:14, that were wonderfully and created, fearfully made. We're supposed to be doing good work. What is a job? The job is not just where you pick up a check. The job is a place where you manifest the talents, the gifts, and abilities that you've been working on and transitioning from place to place to place. And with that, I'll take some of your questions.
Well, PJ, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm glad we coordinated our shirts so that we've made sure we've got the same blue and the check pattern on here. I thought that was, I've been staring at both of them going, I see that's pretty close, but I think mine's a little bit smaller, but yeah, just glad we coordinated today. There is a question. Scott asked, any advice on dealing with ageism?
Yeah, I do. And I love this question. So when you bring up any of the isms, they're all the same. Ageism, racism, whatever the isms are, they're the same. In other words, that there's somebody who's deciding who's better and who's other. And so when it comes to ageism, if the stereotype is, oh, well, this person's going to come in here, they're not going to want to learn anything, they're going to be very like upset with the younger people because they dress differently, may have a nose ring and a tattoo, they're going to come in here and say, I've already done this before. If that's the perception of somebody who's old and they don't want to hire them for ageism, I don't want to sound anything like that. What I want to do is sound like the opposite of what people expect, that they're putting this heavy weight of this label on them. So they really see people that way. What I would sell, because we're talking about influence again, is the fact that, well, I'm experienced. And here's the thing about each experience I've been through. Every experience I've had taught me something else I needed to know. So I'm by no means finished learning. I have a great set of experiences that I've set up, that I've learned, and I've reached back to them to this very day. They're very helpful, right? So again, I want to take this and not put a positive spin on it. I just want to tell the truth. What's the truth? The truth is, do you want to go to a lawyer that just got out of law school to try your big $50 million case? Or do you want that lawyer that's tried many cases and knows his way around a courtroom? It's experience. And so people will pay extra money for experience. In fact, I would frame it this way, Scott, it's mastery. So when you're in your conversation, hey, these are some of the things I've mastered in my lifetime, and I'm still looking to learn even more things to master. So if you look like this incurable learner to them, and don't say that if that's not true, but really, hey, I'm going to come here, I'm going to learn new people, I'm going to learn a new system, I'm going to learn a new culture that's here, and then be forced to adapt to it. Well, you can adapt and live, or you can not adapt and die, which is the people who say, I have a typewriter in an age of the computer. You're going to let them know, I'm not a typewriter in the age of the computer. I'm a computer. Might be an older version of it, but I'm still a computer. Is that helpful, Scott? Let me know. I want to know if that's helpful.
Scott, you can unmute your mic if you'd like. No answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Too many buttons to find. Yeah, that was a very good explanation. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And again, none of this stuff happens overnight, of course, right? But it is small iterative changes. So as a behavioral scientist, I'll tell you, we can change behavior. It's just small little iterative changes that we can do, but we can do them. And so really it's just changing your language to where when they hear you, they go, man, I thought he was going to come in here and be a grumpy old cuss. It sounds like to me, this dude still loves learning. Any other questions? I'd love to answer them for you.
If anybody else has a question, please unmute your mic and ask away. Any questions? Any questions?
And this is Deborah. I'm curious. I had an interview 2 weeks ago for a job that I really, really wanted. I had the industry experience, and it was an organization in my previous industry, but they had seemed to hire everybody in there. They'd gone through a lot of turnover, a lot of change, complete new C-suite, but everybody they were hiring was outside of the industry. So it was senior living, but For communications, they had hired a person who'd been in tech for 20 years. For digital, they hired somebody that had worked at Gold's Gym. And I could go on down the list. This particular woman who was younger than me, who would have been, you know, my manager, had come from the movie theaters and had been there a year or two. And so I didn't move forward in the process. I got 2 interviews in and didn't move forward. And I don't know, that was just a unique experience where, you know, you think industry experience will be a plus, and it really turns out to maybe not have been, or have been a threat. I don't know. How do you overcome that?
Yeah. So one of the first things I like to check, and again, as a behavioral scientist, I'm always looking at behavior. So I would look at, how do you come off in the interview, right? What is it that you're sending off in the interview that's not telling them these are good signals, let's move forward? And I think that you went through 2, so that's great. You were doing something right. So I'm just curious, as in, and especially if they're willing to let other people get in, when you spoke, how would you describe, Deborah, your rate of speech? How would you describe your demeanor? How would you describe how your body language was? Do you remember?
Well, it was a Zoom meeting, and I could tell when she came on. It was 30 minutes. She was 7 minutes late. She was adamant about stopping right on time, so I respected that. I think there were probably a couple of words and phrases that I used that indicated the age difference, not intentionally, but, you know, like when we got to the top of the hour, I said, you know, you said this was 30 minutes. I would like to continue the conversation, but I want to be respectful of that. And she said, oh, thank you very much. And, you know, ended the conversation. I asked her a couple of questions, and she said, oh, those are good questions. You know, so, but from the moment she came on, the vibe just wasn't right. She seemed to have dual screens in her office, because all I saw was her profile. So she must have had the Zoom camera on one screen and doing something else on another, right?
Yes.
And so you know, I've deconstructed this with a couple of people, and I can see a couple of things that I would have done differently, but I wasn't not prepared. I had spent 8 hours over 2 days getting ready and going through questions. I had gone through Walt's program twice, so 4 hours there.
Oh, you were prepared then.
Yeah. I had researched the company. The recruiter, when I had my screening interview with the recruiter, was, you know, he said, well, you know about my company. And I just told him all the stuff, and I talked about the acquisition. It's like, you know, I got the impression that nobody had that level of whatever. And then I spent about 2 hours crafting really different thank you emails, one to the recruiter and one to her. And she'd asked me a very interesting question at the beginning. Instead of asking me, tell me about yourself, she asked me, what do I need to know about you? And people say they're the same questions. I don't believe they are. And I would have answered that question very, very differently in hindsight, in a much more looser, non-traditional way, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
I mean, I've written it out. If I get that question again, I'm just going to go for it. And if I lose out on the interview because I didn't give the traditional answer, so be it. But I would have done a totally different answer to that question. So I'm just trying to figure out, I don't know.
So here's the thing about that. You brought up a great point. Now, see, if we were just thinking about this until she said this was a Zoom, and then she said this person was giving her just a side profile. First of all, this is bad body language altogether. You wouldn't do it in person. You certainly wouldn't do it on Zoom. Anytime somebody's sitting in front of you, you need to be front facing, and they need to be the most important thing that's happening in the room. Now, I wasn't there. I don't think you didn't do what you needed to do, but I will say that that's bad etiquette. Like, we train people how to do Zoom interviews as well over here. And we would never tell someone to be giving someone the side view of you while you're up on the screen doing other things, because you're basically telling that person, you're not that important for me to make me stop everything else I'm doing to do this. And you shouldn't be doing an interview. If this is the company that needs to bring in talent, that's not the way you treat brand new talent that's come in the door. So I'm going to say that I'm sure there's things that you can polish. I don't like the setup of that to begin with, because that sends the wrong body language, and that would make people feel funny. Now, I will say to that question that you asked, you're right. That's not the same question. When someone says, well, tell me what I need to know about you. That is a very pessimistic way to ask a question about, hey, so tell me, what do you love doing? What makes you breathe? What puts air in your sails, right? You would think that in these interviews, you need to be asking people to give you their best stuff. not say things that are negatively phrased to where now they have to decipher through that, which then makes you alter the response because you're now focused on the way the question was asked to you, because we know that the way questions are posed are important, and the way she may be inflected on whichever word in that sentence, because communication is one of the most difficult things to get right, because a lot of people who think they're good communicators don't do it well, right?
Well,
so to do that, you were already in a spot that I would say was kind of very awkward, and it sounds like to me, what not being there, it sounds like to me there was something else that had nothing to do with you, it had a lot to do with her that day. And that's a tough one to be in. What I've told people before is if they have the good rapport, if they have a good connection there, it's okay to ask, hey, is today still good for you to do this? Or has something happened? And some people out of fear will go, no, don't do that because this might be your only chance to get the job. But see, that's fear. You're being very fearful in that way. But
well, see,
to say that
I
way.
said at the, when she, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Let me say, wow, thank you for that, because that's a perspective out of all the ones I've gotten that I hadn't heard, and that helps tremendously. I said when she came on, she was having technical difficulties, not because she didn't know the software, but just she was having technical difficulties. I said, you know, I know this is at the end of the day, you know, if you would like to reschedule, I would be happy to do that. So I gave her that option on the front end, and then I gave her the option to opt out on the back end. And you know, I don't know. I'm just tired of thinking about it. I wanted it so badly. I wanted to work for that company so badly that I'm having a hard time letting it go. But, well, what you just said about that particular question, because Walt Glass always says there's a motive behind the question, but I didn't realize the way she phrased that question was negative. I thought perhaps, okay, that's a tremendous shift for me. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And let me just say this, and for everybody that's on the call, in case you get this, or maybe this has happened to you before, this is not supposed to be adversarial. When you walk into an interview, that should be the most happy time, because the mindset of the interviewer should be, who am I sitting in front of today? Because this might be the missing link that we're looking for. So that should make you be someone who's, you know, grateful to be there as well, even though you may have the title. So when you walk into a situation and they're kind of shut down, kind of closed like that, either that's their normal MO, or she's just having a bad day that day, which you tried to address. She still didn't take that very well. So there's certain companies, while they may look good on paper, like certain people look good on paper, probably aren't going to be a good fit, because if she's acting that way in an interview, that bothers me, how she'd act if you were working there, you know, 50 hours a week with her, having to deal with that. So remember, one of the big things, Deborah, was that when they do hire people outside, is it's personality, it's aptitude, and it's internal motivation. And she destroyed it right there with the personality, because her personality was not one that was saying, hey, I want to hear what you bring to the table. Everything that you described there sounded like it was already set up to kind of be contentious to a certain degree. And I don't know that I'm going to hope, being an optimist, that maybe she was just having a bad day. But sometimes, and
I would give her that too, because she has the reputation for being nice, as does the recruiter. My industry insiders out of Florida that are familiar with this company says, you know, be wary. And so, but because there had been such a changeover in the C-suite, I wanted to give them that culture change opportunity. So maybe it hasn't filtered down yet.
Yeah. And by the way, this is a great point. Thanks, Deborah, you're hitting all of these. So a lot of times it's great to go to a company and it's great to be the perfect fit and all these things, but if they don't have their corporate culture down, which means that there's a lot of turnover going on, they probably don't have the corporate culture yet, which means that it's going to depend on a strong-minded leader to step up and say, well, if there isn't a corporate culture here, I'm going to create it. And see, that's a leadership thing. And if they don't step up to do that, right, then it shows you right there that we've got some leadership training that needs to happen, and you need to have them talk to me, and I'll help them be better leaders, because that's not how I'm going to try to present somebody to take care of the farm. If I'm going to hire someone to take care of my house while I'm not here, I'm not going to be, so what are you going to do in my house while I'm gone? That's not what
if I could add something here,
please, Richard.
on the thing about, there was a question about how would you go in about looking at the other sources for dealing with the mid-career change and stuff like that. Go out and read the Who Moved My Cheese. There's a whole series of books, but the first one, Who Moved My Cheese, that can give you some internal, what are your goals? What are you looking for? And that's particularly important when you're mid-career and you're trying to decide, well, what am I going to do going forward? And then corollary with that is there's a thing called strength finders, which I ran into in the Frisco Connect meeting a while back. Read the book, take the little class, the little test, and understand what your core strengths are. And when you're talking about how to create a how to integrate with the culture at a company, if the company has a culture,
Oh, yeah.
and I will tell you this, I have worked with really big companies and really little companies, and the saddest thing to me personally was when EDS was bought out by HP. EDS I always considered was a really great engineering school. It wasn't much of a company. It was not, there wasn't a plan. When Perot left, there wasn't a plan. It was like this 10 or 12 headed monster, but it was a great engineering school because you could work in any one of the number of parts of that organization that knew everything there was to know about X. And it was an incredible school. It wasn't much fun working as a company, but it was a great place to learn. That's a really weird, but that was the culture. That if you were there and you were hired and you wanted to find out something, you could do it. And that's every company either has we have this information, we're going to guard it like Fort Knox, or we have this information and you need to know this to do your job. And you have to figure out, where do you fit in that company? Are you going to be the crew that tries to make sure that that information is tightly constrained and only available to the high priest of knowledge or whatever? Or are you going to be the one that says, for people to do their job, this information has to be where it can be used?
Right.
And I'm in networks and it's all about communication, but it's also about what do you need to know and where's the information you need to get your job done.
Sure. And so I would say, and I got two other questions, I want to make sure I answer them as well. And so I would definitely say, so most people here know that I'm master certified in strengths-based psychology. And so strengths-based psychology is all about knowing what value you bring to the table. And again, as I said earlier, the asset is you. You're the asset. They're trying to acquire assets. So that's why it's very important that the asset be able to articulate what value they bring to the table. Now, let's say you're doing that, but again, not only are you bringing your best foot forward to the interview, the company's supposed to as well, right? And so I know a lot of times people get fearful and they go, well, I need this job really, really bad. It's like, yeah, but if you get the job and you hate it, you'll be looking for another job in a couple of months. And then it'll be another mark on your resume that you weren't there very long. You'll be very upset. So sometimes you have to be very proactive about saying, hey, if I pick up things that let me know that it's not just a bad day, that this is kind of their culture, because right now it's not very stable, you can just put a mark by that company and say, well, I'll give them grace and hope that they get a leadership team that starts to pick up the leadership, because that's a leadership issue. Leadership has to control the environment there. And if they don't, and when I say control, I don't mean in draconian ways, but in a way that says, this is what we call fair, this is what we call good. And if they don't do that, that means the people coming in will create their own culture. And that's a mess. That's a leadership mess. I've done two companies right now about that, because they were like, well, my people suck. No, the people don't suck. You hired them. So let me understand more about what was your, and then what I found was that they expected people to just come in based off their resume and do all the things on the resume and need no supervision at all. Or the training. How many times people complain about how when you go to a new company, the training's horrible. Like you sit down, you watch a video. Here's how we do this. Here's how we do this. The rest of it's in your employee handbook. That's horrible. But there are a lot of companies that are operating like that. So part of this could be protection for you. Let me get to the questions. I'm going to get to Kelly as well, and before anyone else checks out.
Before you do that, we woke Mark McDonald and Walt Glass up. So obviously they must have something to say. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing their faces right now. So Mark, do you have something you want to say? You need to unmute your mic.
He turned off his video.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, attracting attention. When you guys were talking about Deborah's question, you know, it occurred to me that you're interviewing the company as well. And one of the first things you want to find out early in the interview is what they need, what their highest priorities are. You know, what kind of skills do they need in the person that they're hiring. So even though she kind of threw you for a loop with that question, you need to go right into that mode of trying to learn where they need help so you can explain how you could be helpful. Okay, that also addresses ageism as well. So, you know, if they're interviewing you, they see some promise, and that's another thing that PJ said. The aura of the interview should be hopefulness. You know, they're hoping you are the right person, and of course you're hoping you are as well, and that meets together when you explain, connect the dots, as PJ says, how you can help them achieve what they need to achieve, but may not be exactly clear what they need to achieve. So ask those questions up front in your interview, like right after you make your opening statement, and that'll set you up for better experience.
Walt, what were your comments?
My main comment is listen to PJ. All right. But I'll tell you this, find out the culture of the company. Do your research very much on the culture of the company before you ever get to the interview. All right. If it's not the right culture, don't waste your time there. And you can't depend on the culture. I mean, one department may be very different than another department. One manager can be different than another manager. And so, and if you really like that company and you really like that job, don't let a poor interviewer stop you. All right. Keep pursuing. There's other avenues. I would still keep networking. I would still do other things that would get me into that company.
Love it. I love it. I'm right there with you. So can I go ahead and answer some of these questions?
Yes, go ahead.
So with Kelly, if you're still with us, I think you are. Yeah, you're there. She's asking, can you share some ideas or resources that people in midlife, mid-career who are trying to rediscover their why and what new avenues could be opened up? Okay. Oh, and thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. So some of the resources out there, I would say that leaders are readers and readers are leaders. You've always heard that. There are a lot of great books out there from people like Simon Sinek. If you haven't started to read some of his stuff, he's somebody I love. I love Daniel Pink, writes a lot of great stuff about how we act and what really motivates us as people. He has a book called Drive that's like that. And he has a book called something about To Sell as Human, because we're all influencers. So these are all good things, Kelly, in terms of that. When you're looking at your why, which is a Simon Sinek thing, I do want you to look at, hey, so why does it someone who's been teaching for 25 years all of a sudden decide they don't want to teach anymore, right? What's happened is that somewhere in there, you've picked up some cues that said, this isn't fun no more, and now I want out. What is it? It's the parents. Is it the kids? Is it the way school curriculum has changed? Something has changed. And so you really want to know why, because the person's going to ask you that on the other side. They're going to say, well, so why do you want to be a fire person now that you've been a teacher? And so the more you can show the introspective self-thoughts on why there's a change, why you want to change, that's going to help you. And then when it comes to the what a lot of times is just, there's something else that you still want to do before you're finished working. And so you're taking this opportunity. The pandemic is forcing people to think a lot differently now. You can actually use the pandemic as part of what's ushering in these new thoughts. And with new thoughts, sometimes become new feelings, and with new feelings become new behaviors, right? Because you can break everyone down to thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, right? So whatever is circling in your mind a lot, why are you thinking so much about that? That might lead you to some of that why and some of that what. So those are some great resources in terms of those that you can read. I think there's a couple of the books from Tom Rath, who's a disciple of Clifton, who's Dr. Don Clifton's The Strengths Finder. So he's got some stuff called Meaning and Well-Meaning. So those are some good books as well that I would say is pretty good. And then Michael says something here. I want to address that too. And I hope that's helpful, Kelly. If not, you can certainly reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation. He says, I'm a people person who strongly prefers face-to-face meetings. I'm with you. Relationships are best served warm. Always, always. So what suggestions do you have in a Zoom interview world? So this is interesting because we can't control what they're going to do on their side, but on your side, what you can control is, are you up close enough to the camera where people can read, right? Because people, when they're trying to connect, read the eyes and they watch the mouth. They watch both of these. So are you up close enough? Are you well lit enough? And is your background not too distracting? The things that you could do to try to get the person who's on the other side to look at you. So there needs to be good lighting, there needs to be good sound, and mainly they're focusing on the eye recognition piece is looking at the eyes, because we believe that we can tell someone's life by looking into their eyes, right? There's a lot of romantic comedies about looking into someone's eyes and seeing stars, right? This sort of thing, right? So it's important, and actually in pictures that you see on LinkedIn. when the picture's so far back and you can't see the person's eyes, people tend not to trust when they can't see your eyes. That's why you don't wear sunglasses in any of these profiles. So from your perspective, make sure you're well lit. Your vibe that you've got kicking at that moment is can do. Love to hear the question. Love to ask, is there anything else I can answer? Is there anything else I could respond? Is there anything else I can shed light on? Just being that person who's assertive about saying anything else, but you're not saying it like anything else. You're saying like, is there other light that I could shine? Is there any aspects of, right? And you just open up that way. On their side, what they should be trained to do is anytime you're on a Zoom call, they should know they need to be facing you head on, not looking at something else. And then they need to be also in a frame where they say the whole idea is about 3 inches between your head and the screen, is that they say is the kind of the framing in terms of getting it up close enough. And they just need to know that what you do in real time is what you do digitally too. Real time, you wouldn't be looking over here while talking to somebody and doing this and looking on your phone while somebody's sitting right there. You wouldn't do that. So you mimic, they're supposed to mimic what happens real time on Zoom, because Zoom is just supposed to be a digitized version of what happens normally. So I don't know why people think it's okay to do other things, but I'm working on trying to, carry that flag to say, stop it, act like I'm sitting right here in front of you. So I hope that's helpful to you, Michael. Was there one other new message here, or did anyone else have a question they want to jump in on? Something that maybe I said
I don't
resonated?
see anything else, unless if anybody else, we can take one more question if somebody has a question or a comment.
It could just be something that resonated with you today during the presentation that lets me know what slides to keep, which ones to get. No, I'm just kidding.
I will tell you what resonated with me, and maybe it's just because I'm a reader and I have a notebook full of quotes, but I liked the quotes, and they were different quotes. And throughout the presentation, they resonated with me, especially the ones at the end. So thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
No, I just touched my computer and I.
Okay. Okay, well then let me just, if there are, well, I'm sorry, Walt, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add a note. There is a session out of the 10 series on interviewing about video interviewing that might be helpful to you.
Session 4.
I
Yeah,
love
we
that.
just did it that, Pat. We just did that 2 days ago, and you can go back and watch it. It's up on the Career USA YouTube channel.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So let me just,
If I can add something, if
please.
you get an opportunity, please use the practice interview team. Look at your video, see how you're coming across, because that was one of the things that I had to literally change the way I had my system set up, because I had the camera in one place and I was looking at the screen in another. So I was like this. And you need to be face to face with whoever you're talking to, just like you would be in a meeting room. And going back and rerunning that video a couple of times, I sit on my hands and I have to remind myself to answer the question and shut up, because I will talk and talk and talk.
Well, let me land the plane like this, if I can, for everyone here today. Again, I'm glad that you're here. So let me do this, because I love to take anything that's distressing, or anything that has cognitive dissonance. I like to disperse it for you if I can. And so as someone who listens and talks to a lot of people every day, professional people, lawyers, doctors, I coach a lot of different people, and I hear a lot of the same themes that come out of them. And so here's what I want to say to everyone here today. Here's the thing. Number one, everybody here has talents. Everybody here has strengths. Everybody does. Now, we're all in different levels at how well we've mastered them, but you have them. The job is not an identity at all, because even if you didn't have a job, you would still have your strengths, your talents, and your abilities. So don't let the job become this thing where it's this elusive thing that you chase that you become manic about. Don't let it change your energy. Don't let it make you lose sleep. Remember, right now, the job doesn't know how good you are yet, but it's your job, though, to let them know what you bring to the table. And with that, I will say thank you for your time.
PJ, thank you very, very much. Great information, very, very helpful. Hopefully, I know there's at least one person out there who's thinking about transitioning to something different, and hopefully it was a big help to them. So thank you very much for being with us today. Great information again. Next Friday, we're going to have, next Friday, we're going to have open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. So if you want to get into more discussion about transitioning or about interviewing or interview questions and how to handle people, please Save up your questions during the week and ask us next Friday morning. If you have not put your 30-second introductions into the chat box, we ask that you please do so I can update the roster. I will get that out to everybody this afternoon. I'll copy all that information over and I will put it out to everybody. So if you will, be sure to put in your name, phone number, email address, position you're looking for, a couple target companies so we can try to help you. That would be really appreciated. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week right now. So next Tuesday for LinkedIn Tuesdays will be how to create a LinkedIn brand that tells your contacts who you are, what you do, and how you can help. This will be with Terry Sullivan from BuzzPro. He's a marketing leader. This event will not be recorded, so if you want to watch it, you do need to watch it live. Next Wednesday, if you're interviewing Wednesdays, we'll be on session number 5, analyzing the job description. As we talked about before, the first 5 sessions are all preparing for the interview, starting on lessons 6 through 10 are what happens during the actual interview. So join us this Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And then this Thursday, being the first Thursday of the month, we'll be talking about resumes. Tony Bashira from Babbage & Associates, the largest or the oldest recruiting firm I think in Texas, will be talking about the top 10 big mistakes of resume writing. So if you've never seen Tony before, he tells it the way it is. He sees hundreds of resumes every week, and most of them he throws on the ground because they're not any good. And he'll tell you what he sees and why he doesn't like them. So it's always a very interesting presentation. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. It'll take a couple hours for YouTube to get it uploaded, but if you need to go back and watch this again, I mean, there's some great information here. I think I'll be back and watching it again just to absorb it all. Really great stuff. On the YouTube channel, it looks like this. It is the Career USA YouTube channel. Click on playlist, and then down below, click on the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group list. Don't click on the video, but click down below where it says view full playlist. And then what will happen is up will come a list of all the different topics and dates and topics. The newest one should be on the top. And you can then view whichever one, and you can go back and watch them as often as you'd like. So thank you for joining us today. PJ, once again, thank you very, very much for your time. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.